Jathrabari, a hotspot of state killing during the July-August uprising, witnessed one of its deadliest days on August 5th, claiming at least 19 lives. Recently, a powerful film documenting the Jathrabari killings was released by the ITJP, Tech Global Institute, and the Outsider Movie Company. The film presents key evidence aimed at holding perpetrators accountable. Led by Yasmin Suka, the ITJP, with the help of local researchers, gathered crucial testimonies and footage. In an exclusive interview with the Daily Star, Yasmin Suka emphasizes the importance of exposing state violence and how transitional justice can drive accountability.
Last year, we were asked by some colleagues to begin doing some work on economic crimes and corruption in Bangladesh. And just as we began the discussions on which particular cases we wanted to have a look at, you had the protests which then broke out in Bangladesh. And in discussions with our colleagues over here, we then started to document what was happening during July and August, because it was really about being able, as these violations were unfolding, to begin to get an accurate picture of what was happening. And so we worked with, two groups of people. David Bergman, who is one of our researchers, pulled together a number of young people here in Bangladesh who were able to go around and to collect the testimonies of many of the victims from their families, and also to collect as much cell phone footage that was available. We began to look at how do we use the footage and the testimonies to really begin to deal with both what we call truth recovery, because it was very clear that for many of the families, they didn't really know. They saw on film and in the media what had happened to their children, to their husbands, to their daughters, but they didn't know about it firsthand. And we'd also heard that Bangladesh had set up revived really the International Crimes Tribunal. And so for us, the next best thing was about how do we actually ensure that the cell phone footage we collect is able to be entered into evidence for dealing with accountability purposes, because, in the field of international criminal law, the question of digital technology and how you use that to ensure that, that evidence is admissible in a trial is very different to dealing with, old-fashioned ways of collecting evidence. You have to make sure that you authenticate the cell phone footage. You also, use new digital technologies of chronolocation and geolocation to begin to pinpoint, where the cell phone footage was taking place. And all that's part of the verification process. And so we, in fact, were able to secure the services of another partner who, did incredible work on documenting what happened in Sri Lanka, Canna McRae, and we asked him to put the cell phone footage together to give us a real sense of a progression of events and how they had unfolded. And we also wanted to look at, protests are a very difficult issue, because it's also about how the security forces handle the protests. And what became increasingly clear as we began with the documentary was the way in which you had state-sponsored violence, because I think what was absolutely shocking and outrageous was the fact that, this was not panic action on the part of the police. This was quite orchestrated. It was planned, it was ordered, and obviously at the highest levels, because the way in which the police used live ammunition on protesters who were mainly civilians, who were unarmed, who had no real weapons, I think, except some of them were brandishing posters and sticks, but they were not in a position really to defend themselves. And I think neither did they expect the reaction that they got. There was no warning sign that the police were going to act in that way or to fire live ammunition. And so what we did is we, in fact, made two documentaries. The one deals with the incident at the Jatrabari police station, and the other one deals with a single incident of a young man, Ridoy Ali, who was also killed, and the circumstances around the brutality of his killing. And, as a result of putting the footage together, we got a very clear picture of atrocity crimes which were really being perpetrated, in our view, by the police, who obviously had to have received their orders at the highest level from the state. We wanted to